Hey beautiful people, and welcome to another video. My name is Louisa and I'm an Australian currently living in South Africa, and I'm currently in Pretoria with my little family at this Airbnb so that I can redo my new passports for Australia since I had my name changed after being married. I'm married a South African and I've taken his surname. I thought it would be interesting if I did a sort of comparison video between living in Australia versus what I've kind of found living in South Africa. If you like this type of video, please let me know, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell icon so that you get my future videos. So I'm just going to go into a few things that I've noticed are different between living in Australia versus living in South Africa. So this is just editing me coming back in, and I wanted to add in that I forgot to mention that Australia, I was coming from a first world country and I'm coming into South Africa, which is obviously a developing country. So there's great infrastructure in most places, but of course there is also a lot of poverty, and I can't always expect everything to be at the same standard as it is in Australia. So when you watch this video, just please keep that in mind. So one of the big things that I sort of realized is the difference in not culture, but how laid back Australians are in comparison to how South Africans are. There is a bit of a similarity in terms of friendliness, and everyone is pretty friendly with one another, which is really nice. But Australians just really chilled and laid back and aren't really too bothered about being on time and things like that. Whereas in South Africa, it's more you need to keep yourself neat and you need to be on time, and it's just a little bit more structured, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it could be a big adjustment for you if you are not maybe used to that. Whereas in Australia, it's just super chill and everyone's really laid back. So the second thing I wanted to talk about was Biltong, and South Africans are pretty serious about their Biltong. I think you could probably get it in every town. There'll be a shop, in every mall there's a place you can get it, and the equivalent to this in Australia is jerky, but it's so different. You can't really compare the two. So it's meat that's been, I think it's not cured, it's meat that's been dried, and in South Africa or in Australia you just get jerky, which is sort of moist meat, and it's super salty and it comes in little pieces. Whereas in South Africa you get biltong, so you get ones that's a dried sausage, and one that's strips that you can put chili on or chutney spice, and there's you can get the one that you cut up. I don't personally eat meat, but it's a really big thing here. Yeah, so maybe if you like meat, that would be pretty exciting if you were to come here and try the biltong. Another part of food is Vegemite in Australia versus Marmite in South Africa, and everyone's what's the big difference? It's the same thing. It is so different. The colors are the same and everything, but the spread is so different. So it's a salty yeast extract that you like put on your bread and put on your toast, and like Australians eat it like all the time. At like every hotel you go to, you always get like these little like you would get butter in a little packet, you get the Vegemite version of that, and it's amazing. And South Africans think like Marmite's amazing, and I'm probably just like being really biased with this, but like Marmite is like, the texture is kind of like gritty, and it's like super sticky. Like when you take it out the jar, it's kind of like honey, like it's really sticky. Whereas like Vegemite is more like spreadable, like butter. It tastes so good. Like, man, I miss that so much. You can buy it in some supermarkets here, but the price is like ridiculously expensive. This, I guess, is also something you can consume. Number 3 is like bottle shops. I'm not like a big drinker, although, you know, I've obviously had my potties when I was younger. But in South Africa, a lot of bottle shops, especially in smaller towns, close on a Sunday. And I'm guessing that's to do with the majority of the country being Christian, and, you know, Sunday being like a holiday, so they don't serve out. Some places don't even serve alcohol on a Sunday, I don't think. But I know a lot of bottle shops are closed on a Sunday. When I first came here from Australia, I was like, what is this? This is so weird. Like, you can't go buy wine on a Sunday or whatever if you want to chill. No, you have to like prepare. In Australia, there are even like drive-through bottle shops. So like, you can just drive up to the window and be like, this is what I want to get, and then they bring it to you from the shop, and then you like pay for it and you drive out. Maybe that just means Australians are like alcoholics, but South Africans like drinking too. So I don't know, that's a big difference, I guess, like in terms of the hours that the alcohol is like sold and consumed, or 4 or 5, I can't remember. Anyways, is the term thongs, which you guys might be like, oh my goodness, she's saying a bad word, but like thongs are like flip-flops and are basically inappropriate footwear to wear with almost any outfit. If you're going to the beach, you can wear thongs. If you're wearing like a nice summer dress, you can wear thongs. If you're wearing like jeans and like a nice shirt, you can wear thongs. Like, it just works with anything. And when I came here, I kept saying like thongs, and everyone's like, what is that? That's like really inappropriate. And here it would be like a G-string, but in Australia it's like your shoes, and you could wear them with almost anything. Whereas like I think I only wear thongs here like when I'm working in the, like if I'm in the garden playing, or like going to the beach. Like I don't wear them with like a respectable outfit. Another thing is like public transport, and like this is obviously different all around Australia, because like the town that I grew up in, there were only like taxis that you could book, and not really buses and things. But in the bigger towns like Melbourne or whatever, there's like buses, trams, trains, like you can get anywhere and you don't have to own a car. Where we live in South Africa, like there's none of that. Like you have to own a car basically to get around. Otherwise there are buses, but it's mostly from like the more rural areas. They like you can get a bus like to take people into town and stuff like that, but it's not like the same as it is in Australia. So you almost have to own a car. Like if you're gonna get to and from work and to the shops and things, it's just a lot more difficult like if you don't own a car. And another thing that is really different is the dining experience. So like food here when you go out is so much cheaper, but also you're expected to pay like a 10% tip to your waiter. Like you just add it on to the end of your bill and you pay to them, and they get that as their tip. Which at the beginning I was like, that's really unfair because you're already paying for food. And then I realized that a lot of waiters here just like don't get paid much money at all. So they're almost living off of their tip. So like if you have somebody who has like really given you a great experience, you might want to tip them even more than just 10%. Yeah, but that is like the norm here. Whereas in Australia, I don't think I've ever tipped a waiter. Maybe that's like really was just me, but I don't know. I don't think that's a normal thing to do there. People don't like tip their waiters. Okay guys, sorry about that, and sorry for the little setting change. My daughter just woke up and my mum came out of her room, so she's just gonna watch Ava for a minute while I quickly see if I can finish this video. So another thing I wanted to talk about was freedom. So we grew up in Australia with like a lot of freedom, and I think it has a lot to do with the public transport that's available. So like my brother and I would often walk or ride our bikes to school, and we could just like kind of go wherever we wanted to. And in the bigger cities, you know, there are trains and trams and things, and kids just have a lot of freedom. Even in primary school, like you often see kids out and about on their own, and especially teenagers going and doing their own thing, which I don't necessarily know if it's always a good thing or not, because I think sometimes there can be too much freedom, which is also not the best. And I think a lot of it comes down to, for me personally, the state that I lived in was the Northern Territory. So Australia is like split up into different states, and I was like the one at the top where there's like Darwin and Alice Springs in the middle. And in our state, or in our territory where we lived, like you can get your driver's license at 16. So I went for my learner's license at 16. I practiced for 6 months, and then I went for my P's, which is like a prerequisite to get like your full license. Basically you have to go for your P's and then you can drive. So I got my license at 16 and a half. I had so much freedom, and when I came here it was like a really big shock, because I came and my boyfriend was still in grade 12 and I had just finished, because I'm 6 months older than him, and like we had to rely on his parents basically to like drive us everywhere, which was a really big difference for me, and it was quite a shock and really difficult to like get used to, is not having that freedom, just being able to go and do whatever I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. So that's like a really big difference, is just like the freedom, and obviously the security is a part of that, but that's going on to the next point. So next point is like security. So the houses in Australia often don't even have fences. Where I grew up, it's obviously I'm very I'm talking from a point of view of the town that I lived in. So I lived in a town where people didn't even have fences. So we didn't even have a fence around our property or anything. And even in the cities and stuff, you'll see like white picket fences, like short ones around the front of their houses, or even just like normal wooden fences, which I thought was already like a pretty big step into security, like keeping your property secure. When I came to South Africa, on the other hand, it was like, whoa, I felt like it almost feels like in some places you're walking into like a military camp or something. Like the first few places we lived in Pretoria when we were studying were like block of flats, and then on the outside there was like really strict security, and there's like electric fencing and stuff, which I was not used to at all. And now yeah, it's just normal for me, I guess, because I've been living here so long. So most people will have like big walls and security electric fencing around with like barbed wire on the top, so that obviously people can't come in. And where we live now is like a small town as well. So we live in a security estate, in like a country estate. So there are like wild animals and stuff. So there's like a huge fence around our property. So our house personally doesn't need like a big security fence around it, although some people in the estate have that if you want that. Anyways, that was like a really big adjustment for me. It was just like the security and the awareness of needing to check my stuff all the time when you go out. And yeah, it's just like a really different feeling. I don't know really how to explain that anymore, other than to just say from my personal experience in South Africa, you have to just be so much more aware of your surroundings and just like bump your security up a lot more. Oh, and also houses have like indoor alarms here. So like at night you switch your alarm on, all the doors have like sensors on them. So if it gets open, the alarm will get triggered, and you get beams on the outside of your house. So if someone comes close to the outside of your house, it gets triggered. And I didn't grow up like that at all. We didn't even lock our doors sometimes at night. And I think it's different now. Maybe a couple years later, the safety and stuff has definitely gone down a bit, I think, from what I've heard from my family members and friends. But that's a pretty big one that I wasn't used to at all. The other one is food prices, and this is weird because this isn't a difference, but this is a similarity. So in South Africa, the annual income or monthly income of like the average person is a lot lower in comparison to what it would be in Australia. You earn a lot more in dollars than you do in South African rand, and obviously it has a lot to do with the prices of everything else and stuff like that. But food prices at the shopping centers, I mean at the like Woolworths and stuff, is so similar. So like, I don't know, butter is almost the same price as it costs in Australia, but people in South Africa are earning so much less, which I just find crazy. Even when my parents come and visit, they're like, the prices of food here is actually ridiculous. It's crazy. So in Australia you get Woolworths, and in South Africa you get Woolworths. I'm not sure, they have the same logo, they just look different. In Australia it's like green, and in South Africa it's like a black color logo, but it looks the same. So I think somehow they're linked. I'm not sure, I haven't done any research, don't quote me on that. But the prices are so similar, which is really scary, but the actual shopping experience is totally different. So in Australia, they have so many like dairy alternatives and meat alternatives and just like different foods, whereas like in South Africa they have like a lot of ready-made meals, not a lot of vegan and vegetarian options, although it's getting more now. It's just a totally different shopping experience. Like it's just very luxurious in South Africa. Everything's pre-packed, and yeah, it's just very different. Another thing is like public playgrounds. So in Australia, almost everywhere you go, there's like a public playground where you can take your child to go play, and there are other kids playing there, and the facilities are awesome. And like in South Africa, you don't really get that many public playgrounds unless maybe you go somewhere like Cape Town where they have that like along the ocean, but where we live, like you don't get that. So I think for children, it's a very different experience growing up in South Africa. Although there are things like indoor playgrounds where you can like pay to go for like an hour or two or something, you know, on those like big foam toys and stuff like that. But yeah, playgrounds is a pretty big difference. I mean, it's not, doesn't make a big difference in the whole greater scheme of things, but it is a difference that I picked up. And I'm just talking on like personal experience from things that I've just like picked up. I'm sure there is so much more that's like different in both of these places. And one of the other things is like load shedding, and in Australia you don't get this, and I didn't even know this was a thing till I came here, and I was like so shocked. So in Australia, it's not often that you get like a blackout or that all the electricity is turned off. But in South Africa, there's this thing called load shedding, where like the power stations and stuff will just turn off the electricity for 2 or 3 hours, like certain times of the day. So you get like a schedule, and it has a lot to do with because there just isn't enough electricity and we can't provide for everybody in the country. Well, that's my understanding of it. And now they're saying apparently at some power sources or something, there was like something broke. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not really sure what the whole situation is, but there is load shedding, and it's quite frustrating because like you obviously have to plan your life around it and like all your day around it. I don't want to be dramatic. There are people that don't have any electricity in like the settlements and stuff. So I'm not going to complain about it, but it is a difference. So you get like a schedule, and then for like 2 to 3 hours, a couple times a day, or maybe once a day if it's only in like the first phase, your electricity will just completely be switched off. So that is something to adjust to as well. Another thing is like healthcare. So here, if you want to get like really good healthcare, you need to pay for like private healthcare. So private medical aid, and it's pretty expensive. I think it's almost in comparison to what it would be in Australia, except that in Australia you get Medicare, so it's like a public healthcare system that will pay a portion of whatever you need health-wise to get paid for. Obviously depending on your circumstances, and then you can also pay companies extra for private health insurance, which will like I think work together, if I'm understanding it correct, and like obviously then cover more of your healthcare like needs. Whereas in South Africa there are like public hospitals which are honestly terrible. Like I'm so grateful I don't have to do that. I know people struggle, you know, to get their operations done. They keep getting postponed. There aren't enough beds for people. Like, I mean, you often hear where people are like laying in the corridors because there just aren't enough beds for everybody to have their own bed and be actually taken care of. And that's the public health system, which is really awful. Whereas in Australia, every Australian gets Medicare, so a portion of everything you need gets paid for, and a lot of stuff is free, as far as my understanding is of it. I'm not sure if things have changed now. You could let me know, but yeah, that is a big difference as well. So that's a big part of a cost that you have to add into. So it's like a few $1,000 for your health insurance here. Oh, your health insurance, a few $1,000 for your like medical aid here. Sorry, I just got a call there. I wanted to say, so I have so much more to say, but I think I'm going to put it in a different video because this one's already pretty long. If you liked this video, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and let me know if you like these kind of Australian versus South Africa videos. I think it's pretty interesting. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know if you are Australian or if you're a South African, the differences that you find in these two countries, if you have been to either one of these. And then I love you guys, and I'll see you in another video. Ciao for now.